Did you know that native English speakers make mistakes in their own language too? Yeah, in fact, over 75% of people misuse common English expressions and phrases without even realizing it. And honestly, that should make you feel better, not worse. This bow tie. I'm going to do it. It's a good reminder of that. Even people who've tied one 1,000 times, they still mess it up now and then. I mean, I don't, but, well, actually, sometimes you get a little fumbled. So, what do? You adjust, you fix it, and then you move on. And speaking English works the same. See, fluency isn't about being perfect, it's about catching small mistakes and then cleaning them up as you go. So here's a simple tip that you can start using today. When you notice a mistake, don't stop the conversation. Just mentally correct it. Repeat the correct version once in your head and keep moving. That one quick reset trains your brain without killing your confidence. And that's what we're talking about tonight. Small English mistakes, not rare grammar rules, not test questions, just the small, sneaky errors that quietly make conversations awkward, and how to fix them. Okay, so now that this bow tie is squared away, do me a quick favor. Tap that like button, hit subscribe, and share this with someone who's learning English. And don't forget to drop your questions in the chat, and I'll try to answer a few live at the end. Stick around because the Mastery Minute today will give you a simple mindset shift that instantly boosts confidence when you make mistakes. So now let's get into it. And let's start with Hannah. Let me tell you about Hannah. Hannah speaks English every day at work. Meetings, emails, small talk. So, no problem, right? But she told me something interesting. She said, Dennis, people understand me, but sometimes conversations feel awkward. Not wrong, just kind of broken, just off. So I asked her to make a few recordings, and we listened to a few recordings together. And her grammar wasn't terrible. Her vocabulary was fine, but she kept making small mistakes, everyday mistakes, the kind that even native speakers make sometimes. And they added friction to her communication and made it more difficult. So what we did was we cleaned up just a handful of those little habits, and something changed. People responded faster, meetings flowed better, and she felt calmer and more confident when she was speaking. And that's kind of the point. That's what tonight is all about. Not perfection, but precision. So let's break down the most common English mistakes and then fix them. All right, here we go. Now, before we jump in, let me explain why these little mistakes matter. Here's the thing that most English learners don't realize, and they don't realize that these small mistakes don't make you sound bad. They make you sound uncertain. And it's uncertainty that causes hesitation, awkward pauses, second guessing. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to clean these up today. Starting with mistake number one, much versus many. Now, this one trips up everyone, and I mean everyone. I hear it all the time from smart, capable English speakers. We'll be in a meeting or a casual conversation, and somebody says, I don't have many time. I don't have many time. And here's the thing, look, nobody panics. People still understand you, but something still sounds a little off. It's like a little thing when a native speaker hears this little error, they're like, wait, it pauses the thought process, and that's where the communications issues come in. Because here's the issue: the issue is that time isn't something that you can count. you can't have 3 times sitting on your desk, right? So the fix is actually simple. You say, I don't have much time. And here's the way to think about it. If you can count it, things like meetings, emails, tasks, use many. If you can't count it, things like time, money, information, coffee, use much. Simple, right? And once you start learning and listening for this, you'll hear native speakers sometimes make the same mistake too. The difference is they catch it, they move on, and that one small adjustment instantly makes your English sound clearer and more natural. So, another mistake that causes confusion fast is say versus tell. And this one creates a lot of awkward moments, especially in meetings. And I've seen this happen so many times. Someone is explaining a situation, everything is going fine, and then they say, she said me the truth. Uh-oh. Again, people understand you. They know you're talking about something, and nobody's going to storm out of the room, but there is that tiny speed bump in the listener's brain. Here's why. Say focuses on the words, whereas tell focuses on the listener. So when you include who receives the information or who is giving the information, then the verb tell is doing the heavy lifting. Okay? So instead of saying, she said me the truth, the fix is simple. She told me the truth. Told is the past tense of tell, just like said is the past tense of say. And here's a simple way to remember this. If the sentence answers a question, answer is the question of told who, then you need to use the word tell. So once you hear this difference, you'll start to notice it everywhere, and you'll start fixing it automatically. That's when your English begins to sound smoother and more confident. So now let's talk about a word that people overuse. And I know you've heard this one before. Using very too much. And it's everywhere. You'll notice it, and once you do notice it, you can't unhear it. So picture this. Someone finishes a presentation and says, that went very well. Look, there's nothing wrong with that because everyone still understands, but it sounds kind of flat. Native speakers don't usually stop at very. Instead, they upgrade the word to something more meaningful. So imagine, instead of something like very tired, they'll say exhausted. Instead of very important, we'll say critical. Instead of very big, we might say massive or huge or giant. There's lots of different words you can use besides very big. They still have the same meaning, they just have a stronger signal. Okay? And here's something that you can use today. Every time you're about to say very, pause for half a second and ask yourself, is there a stronger word that I can use that I know already? One word, more impact. And it's actually, you can make this kind of like a game. Think of the word very and put another adjective with it, like very happy. And then if you don't know a word for that, go look it up or ask an AI. They're very useful for that. So now let's hit one that's one of the biggest troublemakers, and that is prepositions. The problems with prepositions. Now these are tiny, but they cause some big headaches because I can't tell you how many times I've heard this in real conversations. Somebody might say, I'm married with her. Now everyone understands what you mean, right? There's no confusion, no drama, but to a native speaker's ear, it sounds slightly wrong, a little bit off, kind of like wearing a jacket that almost fits, but still a little tight. In English, we don't say married with, unless we're saying married with children, because that's two different concepts. Married, I'm married with and I have children, right? So we don't say married with, we say married to. I'm married to her. Now, here's another one that you hear all the time in meetings, and I did a video talking about this, and that one is discussed. I hear this all the time. I discussed about the issue. And this one feels logical, right? Because you're talking about something. So your brain wants to add about. But in English, discuss already includes that idea. To discuss something is talking about the problem. So we don't say about, we say I discussed the issue. And that's why these prepositions are a little bit tricky because they don't always follow logic. They follow habit. So I'm going to give you a tip. Don't try to memorize long lists of prepositions. That's going to make you go crazy. Instead, just notice them in phrases as little chunks. When you hear them, when you're reading them, and store them, store the phrase in your head, right? When you notice it when you're reading, for practice, like I always recommend, check it and go, okay, I'm going to remember this. I'm married to someone, or I discuss something. And that habit of noticing and copying real phrases is how prepositions start to fix themselves. And finally, let's get into some sentence clarity. Okay? This one is interesting. Really versus very. It's a subtle difference, right? And that's why it often slips. I often hear this from learners who are pretty fluent already. They're explaining an idea, they're sounding confident, and then they say, I very like this idea. Again, everyone understands you, nobody's going to stop you, but to a native speaker, it just sounds a little bit off, like the rhythm of the sentence is out of tune. Now, here's the real reason. Very doesn't usually modify verbs. It usually strengthens adjectives, just like we talked about overusing very. Adjectives, you think about that. I'm very tired. I'm very good. I'm very, or you could say of an adverb like quickly, very quickly, very fast. But like is a verb, okay? And English doesn't pair very with a verb. Really, on the other hand, can modify verbs because really is an an adverb. Okay, so it works. Wrong is I very like this idea. Right is I really like this idea. Okay, it's the same position in the sentence, just a different flavor, different behavior. So think of it. English isn't just about the order of the words, it's about which words are allowed to work together. And here's a quick tip for you. You can use it right now. When you want to strengthen a verb, reach for really, not very. Those little tiny word choice adjustments don't just make your English more complicated, they make you sound more calm and confident and more natural, okay? But I want you to remember, making mistakes in English doesn't mean that you're bad at English. It means that you're using English. The goal isn't to make zero mistakes, it's just to make fewer repeated mistakes. That's why mistakes are actually good, because when you make a mistake, you learn something. The fastest way to improve is awareness. And that means noticing patterns and fixing just one or two at a time. Don't try to memorize and be perfect all the time. All right, your challenge for tonight is listen to yourself this week and catch one everyday mistake that you make. Just one. Don't beat yourself up, but just fix it. Fix it once. And then use it correctly 3 times. Simple, right? And you can read the full blog article with more examples at the link in the description. And if you want a clear system to improve your English in just 10 minutes a day, check out Mastering English for Busy Professionals. There's no memorizing rules, no boring textbooks, just practical English habits that you can actually stick to. Right. And before we move on, like, subscribe, and share this with a friend who's learning or improving their English. And drop your questions in the chat because now it's time for the Mastery Minute. Aren't you excited? It's my best minute of the show. All right. So let me ask you a question. Have you ever said something in English, walked away from the conversation, and thought, hey, wait, that's not quite right? Well, that moment right there is what we call a slip up. So let me give you a quick picture. You're in a meeting, you explain an idea, and then 5 seconds later you realize, ooh, used the wrong preposition or the wrong word, the wrong tense. Your brain immediately goes into panic mode. But don't do that. Here's the good news. Native speakers don't call that a failure. They call it a slip up. To slip up means to make a small, unintentional mistake. And grammatically, this is a phrasal verb, slip plus up, which English uses all the time to describe everyday actions and mistakes. But it's also an idiom. You might hear someone say, sorry, I slipped up. Or, hey, we all slip up sometimes. It happens. So the image here comes from a physical movement, right? You don't fall flat on your face. You just kind of slip. You lose your balance for a minute and then you recover. So when you make a small mistake in English, don't freeze. Don't apologize 10 times. Just correct it and keep on going. You didn't fail. You just slipped up. And fluent speakers know how to recover. And that mindset shift alone can completely change how confident you feel when speaking English, okay? All right, that's going to wrap it up for tonight, episode 102. Tonight we cleaned up the everyday English mistakes that quietly affect confidence. We showed you how to make the small fixes that create big results. And on Friday, the next episode, I'm showing you a simple daily habit that helps you build English vocabulary naturally, one word at a time. No studying grammar or memorizing long lists. So just remember, until then, keep your bow tie straight, keep your English practical, and stay curious, my friends. I'm Dennis Wilborn, and this has been 15-Minute Mastery. See you next time.